Hi there, dear friends. Kalidas here to offer some astrological insights for the day and to also begin a new series of weekly classes that I'll be posting on Thursdays at 2 p.m. on my Facebook page as well as YouTube. And you can find both at Astrology with Kalidas. The YouTube page, it has to be one word, because if you space them, you'll find a whole bunch of people in India. So here is Kalidas sitting here at the Organ Creek, one of my very favorite places to hike and go swimming with my family. And I'll try to have a nice location for each of these because I'm not going to be dependent on the live feed or the internet quality. So let's talk about what's going on. I think that it's important to address the planet Jupiter at this time because that's the main good guy on the field. Jupiter is everything positive in life. Your mind is Jupiterian if you can think positively. If you have more of a pessimistic or serious mind, that means that Saturn might be afflicting somewhat that Jupiter. And so we would want to spend more time with children and take life less seriously, do more fun things, maybe change our profession if that's what's making us too serious. Maybe we need a profession that's more fun. So joy is where it's at. If you have it, then you're going in the right direction. But many of us during this time have had a big challenge to our joy level. I know it's true for myself at least. And so what I'm going to talk about today is how we can get more Jupiterian energy into our aura, into our daily experience of life right now. Are you experiencing Saturn energy or are you experiencing Jupiter energy? If there's joy, it's Jupiter. If there's seriousness or stress or anxiety, it's either Saturn or Rahu bugging you. And remember, if you can recall from our previous videos, I spoke of Rahu as that part of the mind that projects into the future ideas about what it thinks might be. And it's essentially always wrong, unstable, because God did not give us the power to correctly perceive the future unless we have some type of psychic abilities. So even when an astrologer tries to tell you your future, they're using their Rahu. That's unstable. You cannot give specific predictions about the future because God is unpredictable. And yet we look in a chart and we see patterns. What would these patterns be? Yogananda spoke of the path to God is through the human nervous system. What this means is that inside you are nerve centers that correspond on an astral energetic level as centers we call chakras. But if you looked at the anatomy of the physical human nervous system, you'd see nerve bundles in each chakra area. And this is the human nervous system through which we must traverse if we wish to come back to our Creator, who made us and awaits us here. This is the door through which we enter the ocean of God, and we must offer our pure river of life at that point. So the path to God is through the nervous system, and what that means is being able to gather all one's energy and focus in a state of deep, calm surrender and devotion. The chart shows the state of one's nervous system. That's what's so very interesting about astrology, is that it gives us an insight into what kind of nervous system we're working with here. And it's not just personally valuable, it's so valuable to know the charts of your partner, your friends, your children, anyone who you have to work with all the time, not for judgment's sake, but for understanding's sake. What's going on with this nervous system? And basically the chart will reveal the probable patterns that we will see manifest in this life lesson plan given by God. And that is what the horoscope is. It's totally cool to be able to look at your own nervous system patterns as well as the moon's progression in the zodiac as it circles the earth. It sets you up on a specific karmic timeline throughout your life. And that's going to also show you which planets will be most dominant, and we can track the energy that way and find out what type of cycle are you in now? When does that change and all of that? So right now we're at a place on the planet where there's big challenge. And a lot of people's Jupiter, which symbolizes their childlike trust in the benevolence of the universe, we could call that faith. Jupiter is very challenged, has been in a challenge, a battle that began actually earlier this year, and it was a fierce battle. And Jupiter kind of backed off, which means Jupiter went retrograde, backed out of Capricorn and backed into Sagittarius. And it's still there. Jupiter has gone direct and is moving back towards Capricorn to enter the battle again with Saturn. When does this begin? November 13th, 2020. So November 13th, we see that Jupiter rejoins Saturn for this final battle. Could be the final battle. We'll see. And that will go on until late March of 2021. So we have about, if we go from mid-November through December, we have about a month and a half, and then we go the first 3 months of 2021, we end up with about 4.5 months, starting in November 13th, of some type of new battle for humanity. And I say this because it's going to be up to each of us to hold on to that Jupiter. What is Jupiter? I said it's faith, it's this childlike trust in the benevolence of the universe. Let me read to you from Sister Gyanamata. She says that these 3 instructions plus meditation contain the only rule of life that any seeker needs. And these are the 3 qualities. 1, detachment. 2, realization of God as the giver. And 3, unruffled patience. And she says, as long as we fail in any one of these, we still have a serious spiritual defect to overcome. So these 3 qualities, the first one is detachment. Jupiter will help you detach, but it requires that you trust your Creator. If you don't trust your Creator, you're not going to be able to have faith in the process, and you'll not enjoy this very moment here, which is indeed the only one that exists. So if we don't have faith, we have no happiness during a time in which humanity struggles through uncertainty. So the detachment is the result of trust. It's not a giving up on life. It's not a negative, pessimistic detachment, like I don't care about this world anymore because everyone's so lost and in delusion. It's more that we're talking about we're giving it back with faith to the Creator who sent it to us. And we're saying, I will try my best and I will do my life lesson plan. I will complete my lessons. I will listen and be humble and see life as a school. This helps us to detach from what we would rather be seeing, and begin to embrace what is, because there lies incredible blessings in embracing what is. God sent it to you. Do you trust God's wisdom? He sent this situation to the world. And we must practice detachment, because if we grab onto the knowledge that we think we have and know, and then maybe another person has different kind of knowledge and what they think they know, well, that will be a threat. And if we're attached to our perception, our perspective, then that will put us at odds with that person and in a state of disharmony ultimately with the universe and God. So wouldn't you rather have harmony and peace in your life? Well, it starts with detachment, letting go and letting God. And then secondly, realization of God as the giver. Well, since Jupiter is going to enter back into Saturn's sign, we're going to get to see some more tests come. This battle isn't over, as you know, whichever place you think you stand. This battle is not over, and Jupiter will enter back into the battle on November 13th. So what are we going to do to keep our Jupiterian energy strong, which is faith, relaxation, trust, and positivity? The second thing is realization of God as the giver. And this means that we trust that the situations that are being organized and ordained for humanity have some type of, even if we can't see it, essential blessing for us. What might we see? Well, Saturn in Capricorn is battling with Jupiter, and that's like a good guy and a bad guy fighting in the systems of organizations and structures of our world. Sound familiar? Yes, that's what's happening. There is good and there is evil, battling for the control of the systems of our world. What do I think are the systems that will go through ultimate transformation through this? Just to add a little tidbit of my own opinion. I think that we'll see a total revolution in society over the next 7 years. And that is because the United States is in the Sati cycle. It lasts about 7.5 years, and we've only done about 6 months of our time. Look how much is already changing, and no, it doesn't look good, does it? I mean, some of it might, depending on where your perspective lies. But we are seeing a vast amount of change, and we'll likely see changes in these systems. Our money system, the American dollar. We may see some changes in our health system. Long ago, there was a war waged on natural medicine, and man-made pharmaceutical medicines have become the dominant form of treatment in our country, and it has contributed to a vast amount of other side effects and illnesses. This is a corrupt system, and it will change. I have more education in health than I do in astrology, just to give you a heads up about that. I'm very passionate about health and the things that Yogananda said about health and how to keep the body well. He dedicated a large portion of his vast teaching to health of the physical body, because he said if you're not healthy, you will struggle with happiness and contact with God. Keep the body fit for God realization was something that he said. And what did he recommend? He recommended natural raw foods and natural medicines. He recommended intestinal cleansing and doing specific programs through which you could rid your body of toxins. This is immunity, strengthening your immunity. And it's what the masks are preventing. It's what you're keeping away from other people are preventing. So the system of our health is highly corrupt. And Jupiter and Saturn are going to get into a battle that I'm completely confident Jupiter's going to win. Humanity will expand in its understanding of health laws, and the health systems will change at the root of their structure during this next 7 years. And then we have the two-party system, Democrats and Republicans, dividing people up, calling one person this and another person different, and then turning them against each other is a tactic long known to evil rulers, to leaders who know that they'll have greater power if the people fight with each other rather than look to the rulership and its corruption and selfishness. So we will see again a change in this two-party system, I believe. I believe we'll become unified system, whatever that might look like. I don't know. Media. The media has been very dishonest with us, haven't they? Most of the media is trained by the CIA to give us lies that control the narrative of the human populace, and popular culture plays a role in that too. The celebrities reinforce these things. They state their opinions, and they encourage the common man like you and me to mimic their behavior and to share their passions. But a lot of them are very corrupt too. So this media and television, which Yogananda said the television has a satanic influence. It has infected the minds of humanity, and we're living as hypochondriacs. This whole health system, media system will change. So what does God do? He creates an awareness of the problem first, and that's where we're at. We're seeing a big problem, and lots of them perhaps, lots of conundrums with no clear answer. Well, we're not meant to find the answer in our egos. We're meant to find it in God. And when our culture becomes more spiritualized and unified and respectful of all who take part in it, race, class, religion, any of that, out the door. We're one. There's only one race. It's humanity. That's what is needed, I believe, in order for basically our world to heal from this great, great wound that's been exposed of inequality, of injustice, of leaders being completely corrupt and let off the hook again and again by a corrupt system. So then we have school, education. Public education is so bad. I hope that Swami Kriyananda's work on Education for Life plays a gigantic role ultimately in helping reform the public schooling system in the world. God made a yin and yang when He made the earth and the universe. So what does that mean for our Jupiter? Does that mean half the time we're happy and then half the time we're not? It doesn't have to be that way. We can remain trusting, faithful, and devotional throughout every life test. It's not only going to make you happier, it's going to help you through the test much quicker. So what does the Bhagavad Gita say? One of my favorite lines, single-hearted devotion, O Arjuna, is what lifts one to the supremely unmanifested state. He's talking about blissful unity with the Creator. Only the ever-conscious, omnipresent Spirit is the ultimate repository of all things and all beings. Basically, what this means to me is that everything comes from God and goes back to Him. So when we're meditating and we find ourselves stuck on an obstacle that's happening external in our life, this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, that only the ever-conscious omnipresent Spirit is the ultimate repository of all things and all beings, I like to let that verse help me with my self-offering, with my sincerity of letting go of whatever is distracting the mind and just saying, God, this belongs to you. You made this scenario. You made the people involved. You made all of these delusions that I'm falling into and the ones that they fall into as well. So can I just give the whole picture back to you and just say it's your dream? And so whatever comes in to distract my Jupiter from present moment feeling of God's presence, I'm able to let go of with that thought that it belongs to you anyway, O great Creator of all the light around me and the darkness. As it says in Isaiah, God reveals to the prophet Isaiah, I form the light and I make the darkness. I, the Lord, do all these things. So that means that the virus and the riots and the corruption in world leadership, all of that comes from God. And He uses evil in this creation to make important changes. But what you'll notice, and what's very strengthening to our faith, is that God ultimately uses evil to strengthen the light. Darkness can make you more aware of the light. So we'll all get to relax and watch with great amusement as God shows all the dark beings and their plans for world domination backfire. You know what shooting yourself in the foot means? It means you have a loaded gun. And you're planning on shooting that gun at something that you see as a problem. But instead, the gun's in your holster and you do something to set it off and you shoot downward right into your own foot. That's what we see evil beings do often throughout creation, is they may dominate for a time, but ultimately they shoot themselves in the foot. And we see this in when Hitler's army began to become powerful, and it really did look like the world could be overthrown and overtaken by the Nazis. It is said in yogic literature that the great masters of India in the Himalayas, well aware of the state of the world, were sending thoughts into Hitler's mind, suggestions for him to split his armies. And if you know history, at least the history that we've been told, you'll hear that Hitler did split those armies, and that is what ultimately led to his downfall. And this was done by the great masters. So they saw evil starting to get an upper hand, and they said, oh, it's time for evil to turn on itself, to create to eat itself. There's a snake in ancient mythology that eats its own tail, and it's a symbol of evil, that evil eventually destroys itself. And I can't quite remember the name of that symbol right now, that's the snake who eats its own tail, but it's a powerful metaphor when you look at evil in the world and your faith in God is challenged by that. And that's what I think this period from November to March 30th, November 13th, 2020 to March 30th, 2021, it's going to be a big challenge to our faith in the Creator. So be aware of that. Jupiter's the answer. It's being present moment, positive, and affirming God's in charge. If you want, yell at your guru or your Divine Mother and say, look at these things, look at this darkness. You must do something to turn it into light. That might help you in some way. Be real with God. You know, one of the greatest pieces of advice one of my mentors, Jyotish, gave me, Jyotish, the man who runs Ananda Village and Ananda Worldwide, I told him once that I had observed that I had social issues around really great souls. Like I felt all self-conscious around him. And Jyotish's advice was, just be yourself. And that was it. Well, we can be ourselves in a lower way, which is like admitting and surrendering to all our resistances and annoyances and affirming those. Or we can be ourselves in a higher way, which is to ask every day that God show us how to do that God flow through us, that He guide us in everything. It's so helpful. I wake up to a child every morning. I don't wake up to a silent home. It's a home of activity from the very beginning. And if I remember, just upon rising, Divine Mother, flow through me, guide me, help me to be a dad through me, and help me to get my Dharma done today. Gosh, that brings so much grace. And that's just a simple prayer. It's not even like a disciplined hour-long or 2-hour-long meditation. And that's the power of Jupiter. It's like the trust of a child in its mother. Just asking, just with total faith that Mother will abundantly provide. So Jupiter is a lot like our Divine Mother, that which we have faith in. Remember when you would drive around with your parents as a little girl or boy, and you had complete faith that your parent who was driving the car knew where they were going, even if there were unexpected stops? Well, you could relax and be present in that car. And that's also how it is for us when we learn to live in more Jupiterian values. That, oh, world's going into crisis. Well, who's driving the car? Is it me? Because I might like freak out and drive off a cliff or run over a whole bunch of people I don't agree with. Or I could let God have the wheel again and trust that He's always. Remember, all the tests in your life have led to greater wisdom and greater love and feeling of God's presence. That's the grace of the spiritual path. It's that ultimately even the hard experiences, they serve us even more. You know, they say, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, about really hard things sometimes. That's what Swami Kriyananda said when he was thrown out of his beloved ashram of his guru. He said that was the one thing that he could never accept as God's grace. But then later in his life he said, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me too, because Swami made Ananda a community of souls seeking the light, who whether whatever race or stance in life or dharma you have as parent or monk or teacher, all are accepted, all are encouraged towards the light, all are forgiven with compassion for their errors. And this is the spiritual path when it forms a community of seekers. It's so beautiful, so helpful to our spiritual path to live with other seekers. It reminds us of these very important qualities that bring us happiness when we practice. So lastly, I'm just going to give a little information about the coming days, because Mars and the Moon will join in Aries for a time, and this could be tough. We're talking about the dates October 3rd and October 4th. That's, I believe that since this is Thursday, which would be the 2nd of of October. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are likely to have the Moon and Mars are very close, and they're aspecting Mercury on the other side of the zodiac. So we're looking at Mercury, the communicator, the throat chakra, being a little bit overpowered by frustration and anger and fits of temper tantrum. And you don't want to say anything to the people you love the most that you regret. So be aware on those days if you can be more Jupiterian, which is, I'm going to have faith that whatever's going on for this person who's upset me, they're going to figure it out. I don't need to tell them what to do. You know, sometimes you can delay your dearest friend or partner's progress if you try to tell them what to do. They're going to find out what to do through their own prayer and attunement. You can't even change them if you try. So it's better that we pray for them and that we trust that their God-given intelligence will lead them to their right perspective in time. And in the meantime, we can practice patience. That unruffled patience is the last part of Gyanamata's 3-part reading. And this patience is also rooted in faith. It's saying, can you wait for God to come through? Well, it might take it might be a while. It might even be till late February of 2022 when Jupiter enters the section of the zodiac called Purva Bhadrapada. I think that things will certainly be different by then. And that's the return of the light, Jupiter entering into a very auspicious place in the zodiac that they call return of the light in India. But we could see some positive changes as early as March 30th, 2021, when Jupiter does, for a time at least, exit Capricorn and go into Aquarius for a little bit. So the transits are something to be aware of this weekend, and ultimately we see that from the 1st of October till the 6th of October, Mars will be in communication with Mercury across the zodiac, and that is Mercury's in Libra, which is relationship and people-oriented connections with people and communications, and then Mars is in Aries. That's very powerful for things like battle and warfare, and also you could, you know what, a positive manifestation of it would be is starting a project, something that's going to take a lot of focus and energy. It would be auspicious to start a project with Mars in Aries. But we must remember these 3 steps Gyanamata speaks of. She says detachment, realization of God as the giver, unruffled patience. Those 3 steps, if we can come back to those again and again whenever we get upset, we'll see there's one that's lacking. Is it our patience? Is it our detachment? Is it our realization that all of these experiences are coming from God? I'll leave that to you. It's been a great joy to share with you today. Be careful with this Mars and Mercury aspect, which goes until the 6th of October. And it could, if you're not careful, cause you to say or do things that you wish you hadn't to the people that you love the most. So instead of speaking when you feel you must, step outdoors, go for a run, go in the backyard, energize a little bit, go and wash the dishes in silence, but don't respond with negative emotion. It might save your relationship. It saved mine lots of times, my wife can tell you. God bless you, dear friends. It's been fun to share, and I'll see you next Thursday.